When a fervent fan base has been waiting 8 years to see your movie, you better get it right. The Hobbit. Peter Jackson takes us back to Middle-earth to start the story that eventually ends with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, this time following Bilbo Baggins in his adventure and journey with a company of elves, at least the first part of that journey, which will eventually be 3 movies over the course of a couple years that we will see in this journey. Lots to talk about with The Hobbit. So many things. Want to talk about the movie itself, want to talk about the technology because it was shot for the first time at HFR, or high frame rate, so we'll talk about that. Also, I want to talk a little bit about the book and the kind of comparisons that go on with that. Let's start with the movie itself. It is a task to kind of meet the expectations and the needs of this loyal and fervent and really ravaging fan base that love the Lord of the Rings movies, and you better get it right when doing this. And unfortunately, I don't think Peter Jackson does completely, and I think you're going to hear a lot of complaints. Although I have to say, overall, it's a really good film. The story is good. The emotional beats in the movie are really, really good. I found myself very moved by these characters and what they were going through, and there were certain moments in this movie that were transcendent storytelling-wise, and he did a really, really good job with that. The performances are stellar. Martin Freeman is perfect as Bilbo Baggins. I love him. I love the way he plays this part. He just has this real knack for being true and genuine and real, and yet at the same time conveying kind of this little bit of humor and sarcasm and kind of self-centeredness. It's this really interesting juxtaposition he does. I also want to mention specifically Andy Serkis again as Gollum. He is incredible. The scene where they are trading riddles, the book in the chapter is called, or the chapter in the book is called Riddles in the Dark, with Bilbo, is the centerpiece of this movie and is incredible. Oscar-worthy performance again for Andy Serkis and what he's done with this character. I just am in awe of that. All the other dwarves and different surrounding characters, of course, Ian McKellen as Gandalf and many, many others who we know from the Lord of the Rings movies, are good and certainly do their part. I don't think the performances are what are flawed in this movie at all. What's flawed in this movie is the presentation. It is too long. Now, that's an easy thing to forgive when you're dealing with Lord of the Rings because it's such an expansive book, but with The Hobbit, to stretch it out into 3 movies and to add all this material from other sources of Tolkien really can feel kind of the padding that has happened here. It begins with this intro scene that is almost unnecessary, and if it needs to be there at all, it could just be to touch on it. But the first 5, 10, 15 minutes of the movie we're spending with older Bilbo and Frodo as they introduce this story, and it seems a little bit pandering. Like, it doesn't need to be there, but it's there because people want to see Frodo, or they want to, tie it into the Lord of the Rings story, and I just felt like it was a little bit much. And that happens on occasion through The Hobbit, where things just feel a little bit too long and like you're not getting to the next thing quickly enough. But man, when you get there, it sings, and these action scenes are incredible. These songs that they put in this movie are really moving. The Misty Mountain song that the dwarves sing, I really found wonderful, and as that theme plays throughout the movie, I really, really enjoyed it. Overall, this is a really well done film that's just a little bit too long and maybe a little bit too full of itself, and it feels like maybe they wanted to make The Hobbit so similar to The Lord of the Rings that they didn't give it a chance to be its own thing, to have its own feel, and to maybe be a little lighter and be a little quicker and be a little shorter, as opposed to the depth of The Lord of the Rings, because I think that honors the difference in the books. And let's go there next, to the difference in the books. And there are several, again, because many of these things are added. And I really think you're going to see fans of the book not liking a lot of the additions that have been made to this movie. I just recently came from the books and can see many of the different places where things have been added for story purposes. Do I hate them? No, I can see why they did them. But if you are in love with the world of these books, there's enough changed here that that you might take offense at it. And what's interesting is with Lord of the Rings, you change things by subtracting. Here, you're changing things by adding, which is a totally different game and one that feels even a little more out of place. Let's finish up by talking about the new technology because we have to hit on it. HFR, high frame rate. This film was shot at 48 frames per second as opposed to 24, which basically means you're getting twice as much visual information every single second of this movie, and the result is spectacular. I mean, it is mind-blowing at points during this movie how crystal clear and bright these scenes are. I've never seen 3D this bright because usually the glasses dim it, and that's one of the problems I have with 3D. But this is crystal clear, bright 3D, and is really incredible to look at. Now, having said that, there's another side to it, which is it's also distracting. It's so clear and so different than what you're used to seeing that your mind will interpret that in really interesting ways. Sometimes it feels like the video is jumping, like it's even sped up at times because of that. Many times it feels like you're watching maybe like a video, like a home video, because it's just kind of too crisp and too clear, like a soap opera. They call it the soap opera effect that happens there. Those things can be distracting. I will say my eyes adjusted pretty quickly to the HFR, so as I was able to kind of relax into it. But even throughout the movie, there are just times, especially in some of the brighter scenes, that it is a distraction, but man, what a beautiful distraction. And I come away from it going, okay, would I want to see other movies this way or not? Do I feel like it improved the experience? And I have to tell you, my answer is yeah, I feel like it improved the experience. If I had a chance to see Lord of the Rings in HFR, I absolutely would. No questions asked. I would want to see that gorgeous work done in that high detail. Is it the future of movies? I kind of hope so. Not sure, but I hope so. I think there may be a little bit of backlash because of the distractions and the different effects, but man, if we can get used to watching movies this way, the result is just an incredible way for artists to give more detail and life to their films because it really is that spectacular and that beautiful. You will notice a difference. It is not subtle. It is something that you definitely will notice. Overall, The Hobbit is a good, in fact, probably a great, but flawed movie that I think pays service to what fans are looking for with a technology that at least has to be seen once, just if for no other reason than to pique your curiosity about what this thing is. So I'd recommend seeing it for sure and seeing it on the big screen in HFR just to see what that looks like because it is something else.